Hello students, today I am preparing the video on the first chapter of the textbook VISTAS, that is the third level by Jack Finney. Now before beginning to prepare the video, I would like to tell you that the third level deals with the imagination, with the world of a man, the protagonist named Charlie, which actually does not exist. It deals with the world, it deals with the imagination, with the things stated by him which are not in the present. So before you read, it is given, have you ever had any curious experience which others find hard to believe? So there are things which people won't believe even if you encounter them. Okay? So this chapter deals with those things only. The presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two. But I say there are three, because I have been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. Now this chapter begins with an autobiographical note, where it seems that the writer is telling his own story. Or maybe the protagonist, Charlie, is telling his own story because it has got alphabet I in it. And he says that people say, even the president, the chairman of the Grand Central Station or New York Central and New York New Haven Hartford railroads will say that there are only two levels in the Grand Central Station, but I will say that there are three levels. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist, friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station. And he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad. But he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it. And that I just want to escape. Well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. In the first paragraph of the fiction, the third level, the protagonist, who will be introduced later on to us, actually tells us that he has visited the third level in the Grand Central Station. He says that even the railroads authority will only tell us that there are two levels, but he has visited the third level of the Grand Central Station. And he says that when he told this to his psychiatrist friend, we will come to know later on his name, he said that maybe because he is sad in his life, as we all remain under stress, under so many tensions in our life, so it is a type of refuge and imagination to escape him from his worries. But then he questions that most of us remain in stress. We are tensed out of one thing or another, but we do not imagine third levels in our lives. He also says that when his wife came to know that he was unhappy in his life, she was not quite contented to listen to it, or was not quite happy to know that. But what can be done? But that's the reason, he said, and my friends all agreed. Everything points to it, they claimed. My stamp collecting, for example, that's a temporary refuge from reality. Now we also come to know that the protagonist, Charlie, is in the habit of collecting stamps, and his friends and psychiatrist agreed to the point that because he wanted to escape from the harsh reality of his life, he took refuge in collecting stamps. He used to get solace in collecting stamps. He developed this habit and also has imagined or maybe experienced the third level in the Grand Central Station. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful in his day, from all I hear, and he started my collection. And listening to his friend's statement and psychiatrist, this protagonist says that if my collecting stamp is my refuge from the harsh reality of life, or if I'm collecting the stamps because of the stress in my life, what about my grandfather who initiated this habit in me, who also was a stamp collector, but he was quite a contented man. His grandfather was also in the habit of collecting stamps, but was quite satisfied and happy with his life. It is a nice collection too. Blocks of 4 practically every US issue, first day covers, and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too, you know. So this protagonist tells us that it is not only he who collects stamps. President Roosevelt, his grandfather, also collected stamps, and they were quite contented in their lives. They were quite happy in their lives. Anyway, here is what happened at Grand Central. Now coming back to the Grand Central Station. One night, last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment. So I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it is faster than bus. Now, you may very well imagine the situation. Suppose you want to go from Panvel to Kharghar. Going by bus would take longer time as compared to the local train. So same thing happened with this man also. He says that last summer he worked quite late at his office. So to reach earlier after the work, he planned to board the train from Grand Central Station. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie. And now we come to know that the name of the protagonist, the hero of this fiction, is Charlie. 31 years old, and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. So Charlie says that after work he wanted to go home early to meet his wife because it was already quite late. So he decided to board the train from Grand Central Station. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level, where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level, where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway, heading for the subway, and got lost. That's easy to do. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times. Like you must have gone to Panvel station several times. This author also says that he had been to Grand Central Station and he had boarded the trains several times. But I am always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. Now Charlie is telling us that last summer he worked quite late at his office. So to reach home earlier, he wanted to board the train from Grand Central Station, which on record officially had only 2 levels. 2 levels, you can say, you can just take it as the 2 platforms. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots, because he says that every time he visited Grand Central Station, one way would lead to some new way. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square, and maybe another to Central Park, and maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit and a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into, but I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So he's saying that Grand Central was a very big station, one way led to another, and many a times he used to come out to a new place. But he says that he never told such things to his psychiatrist friend. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong. But I kept on walking. So he was walking on the way which was bending towards left. All I could hear was the empty sound of my footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. So he was all alone moving towards the left. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead, that means open space and people talking. So later on he reached a place where he could listen to some voices, some sounds. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. So he says that when he went on following that left angled way, he reached the Grand Central Station's third level. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. And the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and a sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. Now students, in this paragraph, there is a beautiful description of the third level which actually differentiates it, demarcates it from the second level. Because he says that room was smaller, fewer ticket windows, and then there was wood and old looking booth. Man was sitting in the booth wearing green eye shade, etc. In this first part of my video on this chapter, that is the third level, the main essence of the chapter is that there is a protagonist, a hero named Charlie, who is in the habit of collecting stamps, who has a wife, a psychiatrist friend, and a group of friends, and he tells them about his visit to the third level, or you can, to simplify, understand it as the third platform, but you're not going to use the word platform in your answers. He reached the third level in the Grand Central Station, which never existed, because officially on record what is true is that Grand Central Station has got only two levels, first level and second level, but he claims that he has reached the third level, which was very, very different from that of the first two levels. It appeared to be quite old. And then he says that when he told this to his psychiatrist, his friends, they said, his psychiatrist friends said that because he was quite stressed in his life, because he was quite sad, unhappy in his life, he used to take refuge in imagining such things. He used to get solace, happiness, contentment by just removing his presence from the present to something which did not exist. Also, his friends and psychiatrists stated that his habit of collecting stamps also was a sort of recluse, a sort of his refuge from the harsh and sad realities of life. But then his answer to that was that his grandfather and President Roosevelt also had the habit of collecting stamps, and they were quite contented. So with this, the first part of this chapter, which comprised of the first 3 pages, is over. I will continue the explanation in my second video, part 2, the third level. Thank you.